collaborative chimeric group, and I show you the beginning of the on the training about planning and capacity building of environmental soil management of first PCB stockpile in Turkey. Good, and of course, because it's specific for the Turkish people, and it's a UNIDO project. The project is it's a PCB inventory, and this training is first part of the PCB management to help all the people who are some PCB transformer to help it. It includes how to sampling and analysis on PCB, and updated PCB inventory. Some inventory are making at the beginning, and we can complete it. And now we shall develop also standard guidance document. All the participants are supposed to be present, and of course for this website you can represent, and I hope so you have some good expectation for this training, and you can find full of information. Aprochim, it's a subsidiary of Chimeric Group. He is specialized in PCB management, and specifically dismantle and removal of the PCB. What are the training objectives? The objectives are majorly as to develop information about PCB inventory in Turkey, give some awareness about PCB pollution, safety, and environmental protection rule, how to manage the PCB transformer based on best practice, and finally, how to perform sampling for analysis and in safety environment and without cross-contamination. Cross-contamination should be one major issue, because if you have some oil around less than 50 ppm, you could have some cross-contamination who had some pollution of PCB for the PCB material. For the participants of the training, we organize full of things. The first thing is identification training for by labeling in concordance with the Stockholm Convention. Each transformer should be non-PCB contaminated, or should be low PCB contamination or high PCB contamination. And to be able to design a support plant with a UNIDO and Turkish team and chemical management department of Ministry of Environment, to provide certification for PCB sampling for the participant with Aprochim sampling kit. The major point of the training is a 3-day theoretical in room and 1-day practical on site. Based on our experience with 2 trainers, Omar Halak and Jean-Etienne, and of course, if you need some information, can give directly. And the purpose of each day is very easy to identify. First day is a general explication about, for example, POP language, organization at international and national level in the context of POP, the PCB identification, PCB application, and periodic examination and maintenance of PCB containing material. The second day is about transformer PCB identification, dielectric oil sampling, including prevention of cross-contamination, how to design a sampling plan with a laser size, and also how to use text kit analysis and gas chromatography analysis. Day 3 is about the rule for transportation and handling, including how to read the analysis report. And also we developed some issue on emergency plant and how decontaminate. 4 days is for the practical day on visit on site. Generally, it's transport from the hotel to the site by bus. And the first day is half a day with 2 points. The first is how can we have a PCB decontamination process, and second is a training evaluation and give some personal certificate for each people who participate. We can have some presentation of UNIDO about introduction of legally elimination of POP release reduction project. And about the POP language. It's what is standing for is just how to explain what type of word we're using. We're using some acronym like POP, PCB, PPM, SC, etc. And of course, we have some need to insist on different points. For example, POP, it's a persistent organic pollution. It's an acronym in French, but that means persistent that have a long life, and its maintenance in the nature. Organic, that means it's directly in connection with the nature, and pollutants, that means it's very large, very hard pollution of each issue. EP speak about the POP as dirty dozen pollutant, and the Stockholm Convention speak about 23 toxic pollutants. What is about pollution language? It's generally because we are starting about leakage. Leakage should be an event in a site for everything, and there is a different consequence for the leakage. It's to go in the nature, in the river, how to leakage is starting on the river, and the POP is going to the river dissemination. In the river, the sediment fish are eating some in different grass, whereas the pop is going raw, and fish is polluted directly, and fish should be fishing, and could be food, and with a risk of illness or death. The question is, who is responsible of leakage, and who shall be the victim? Sometimes we are full of kilometers from one event to another one. The real world recently I read The Guardian and shows this information because the race was deleted in UK due to the risk of pollution. The scientific finds full of toxic in a killer whale, and in this case, of course, they thought it was a large risk for all the people, and specifically all the people who end up in the food chain. PCB, it's a good product. We can show that because it was created by the industry. It's an industrial process. It's a human creation for electrical transformer, and using for heat exchange, feed, spinning additive in carbonless, and also in copy paper and plastic. Also in untouched could be products during the combustion. During all the seminar, I shall talk about PCB as pop. Sometimes you can find also the word PCDD, dibenzo dioxin or dioxin. It's a high toxic byproduct of the PCB, specifically when you're burning. And it's for the reason we are looking the life analysis of the PCB. During the analysis, we are looking over the step of this life from cradle to grave. It's one issue. Another issue is a thing for Stockholm Convention. The Stockholm Convention is the main part of our subject because it's this convention regulates the ban of 23 toxic substances named POPs, and this substance are supposed to advise still permitted until 2025 under the condition that certain safety precautions and conditions are fulfilled, and we are speaking about all the week. But after the 2028, all PCB equipment shall be banned or disposal and in environmental sound manner. You are using also the word, the acronym PPM. It's for us a part of million. It's to define the PPM we are using is not the same like biological people, because we're measuring the amount of a substance or a liquid based on a kilogram or a liter of or cube meter of liquid per million. Is why we are using this word. If you are looking, by example, the value on ppm in biologic side, it's very different because we're speaking about a kilo of person of the body and so on and so on. It's very different. Issue is not the same scale. We are also using acronym like ADR, very common because it's using for road transportation, and it's a European regulation who is extended to Turkey and Russian Federation. EMDG for the marine transportation, and EATA for the transportation by air. We were speaking about another time because we are opportunity to explain what are specifically the rules. Gas chromatography is a technique we are using. For us, it's very important because gas chromatography, based on analysis of vapor and injector, is head of gas colored of substance. We can have a result who describe different parameters like name congener. Each congener is very specific. It's one representative of one PCB. PCB is around 200 different congener who are classified, but all are very dangerous and should be created hazardous results. Gas chromatography have a sort of a view with carried gas, flow pressure control, an injector, and the column, and the results are directly read by a detector. Also, PPE, it's a personal protective equipment. It's very common in the industry. Full of people know what are the PPE, but it's very specific. Each case we are substitutes to use to find a PCB. You must use some PPE very clearly. And also we need to have a PPA for doing the risk analysis, and the risk analysis is a good opportunity to identify what sort of PPA you need. And at the end, what I can say about PCB % issue. Now with the Stockholm Convention, import and export PCB is banned. The production of PCB is stopped everywhere. I'm not sure around the world, but for the country we sign and publish Stockholm Convention is right. But sometimes PCB storage could be found in different leakage, transport, use, not recycling because it's banned by the product, the Stockholm Convention, but also we can find some disposal, and certainly for the history of all the history of this activity, our activity, industrial activity, we can find a PCB in different disposal around the world. All the context of this issue are based on different conventions. The first one is Basel Convention. It was a period where full of movement of hazardous waste transborder were show, and some scandal showing by the NGO, and it's why the Basel Convention was made to reduce transborder movement as a minimum consistent with the environmental management. It's why it's the first base of our job. And second is to dispose on hazardous as closely as possible of the source of generation. And third, to minimize the generation of hazardous waste because, in terms of quantity hazardous. The objective are to prohibit the exportation of hazardous waste in different developed countries without control. We can show also, and specifically a Rotterdam Convention, we can give some rules to export and import hazardous waste, but of course it was a convention to limit this sort of movement. The principle of the Basel Convention as hazardous waste transborder market is not free. Internal market sometimes is yet free, but less and less. Hazardous waste are be treated as possible close to the protection area. Less hazardous waste should be produced, and developing countries are not the garbage of the developed country. Each country should organize an inventory, and the hazardous waste survey is one reason of the development of the different hazardous waste. We are speaking just before about the Stockholm Convention. Stockholm Convention is how to develop the PCB treatment and disposal technology to comply with highest safety and environmental standard, and must be capable of reducing the PCB contamination level of those space and equipment suitable for classification belongs the legally permit level of 50 ppm, as well to assure that the PCB level maintain low that limits. Of course, for us, the best level of PCB is 0 ppm. It should be better. It's forbidden with the Stockholm Convention to produce, import, export, and trade PCB, to reuse and process PCB waste, and to refill PCB equipment. Its entity are obliged to property label the equipment, and is one objective of this training. The training is part of Stockholm Convention in application under the UNIDO and Ministry of Environment Authority. Other convention is about it's a Rotterdam Convention about toxic pesticide and other hazardous chemical. It was entered into force 2004. It was to establish an official notification procedure, as I said before. It's complementary of Stockholm and Basel Convention to import and to export the chemical based on a list. Inform importing country the export of the chemical are banned at severely restricted for use, and inform all the country of each national ban and restriction for a chemical. It's a list of banned chemical. And also we have some convention who are treated about how to protect different sea. Mediterranean Sea is covered by the Barcelona Convention. And we have also other convention who are developed for the Black Sea and other area. Barcelona Convention apply on the Article 5 provides the contracting party to take labeling measures to phase out POP and the stock, including the PCB synergy of the work and commitment taken under the Stockholm Convention. And it was the last point we can show before the ministry and the UNIDO presentation.
Like all films, this one has its bad guys too. Let us introduce them. PCBs. What they are, why they're so bad, and how we can defeat them. What are PCBs? PCBs are pollutants, more specifically known as polychlorinated biphenyls. They are highly toxic, long-lasting, over 100 years, and bioaccumulative, and one of the most harmful persistent organic chemicals ever manufactured by man. It took a long time before we became aware that PCBs had a negative impact on the environment. PCB production started in 1929. They were banned in the United States and most Western European countries around 1980, and by the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants in 2001. Although they're currently banned virtually worldwide, in decades after 1940, they were used on a mass scale in manufacturing, particularly in coolant and hydraulic fluids of old transformers, capacitors, particularly in fluorescent light, double-glazed windows, caulking and other insulating materials, oil-based paints, heat exchangers, cables, vinyl flooring, surface coatings, adhesive and tapes, hydraulic oil, carbonless copy paper, concrete, glues for ceramic tiles, and pesticides. Why are they so harmful? PCBs have proven to be damaging to the environment. They cause immunotoxicity, skin problems, reproductive alterations, and cancer in animals and humans, particularly in marine species such as the common seal, porpoise, whale, and salmon. PCBs are bioaccumulative. Bioaccumulative means that PCBs are passed on to other animals through the food chain until they reach human beings. They are also transmitted through pregnancy and breastfeeding. They can cause cancer and many chronic diseases, specifically due to their influence on the nervous, immune, endocrine, and reproductive systems. PCB degradation is very slow and difficult. PCBs can linger for centuries, polluting the environment and therefore affecting human health and nature for generations to come. However, it should be made perfectly clear that PCBs can be eliminated. This challenge is in our hands. What can we do? We must work together. Together, we can succeed. Governments must work to implement the goals of the Stockholm Convention. This can be done by introducing appropriate legislation, which makes it compulsory to identify PCB-containing equipment and replace them by PCB-free alternatives, along with the disposal or elimination of PCB-containing materials as hazardous waste in an environmentally sound manner. NGOs must exert pressure on governments, institutions and companies in their respective countries to take appropriate measures to eliminate PCBs. Industry and scientific institutions should work together towards eliminating stockpiles. There are probably several thousand tons of PCB-containing equipment in countries around the Mediterranean. This equipment must be identified, dismounted, handled as hazardous waste, and delivered to appropriate destructing facilities. And it should be replaced with PCB-free alternatives. The media must spread information in order to raise awareness among the general public, industry, and NGOs. Eliminating PCBs is possible. If we fail to do this, more PCBs will leak out into the environment or end up in landfills where they might burn and create dioxins that are even more toxic than PCBs. In such a case, we'll end up with PCB-contaminated food. Whether this film has a happy ending or not is in our hands. We have to be the good guys.
The video are performed by Jean itself for the English version, Lean Manager, Omer Halak, Turkish translation and Turkish version, with the support of Lassen El Bouai.